Well, thank you very much for joining me again, Marcus, because last time I had such good feedback about your interview that I just had to interview you again.
Thank you.
And
it was fun.
Sorry?
It was fun.
Good. Yeah, for me too. So I'm primarily, my audience is account managers and people who work in ad agencies particularly.
Yeah.
So I know that you've worked with a lot of ad agencies in the past. So can you tell me what kinds of, when people come and ask to work with you, what kinds of problems do they come to you with, or are they hoping that you can fix for them?
The top one's got to be pitching. It's got to be the single biggest waste of people's time. You hear about people working evenings, weekends, consistently, 20 weeks in the year. Their idea of a sense of relief is when there isn't a pitch on. And it's the single biggest source of free education in whichever market you work in. Why would you give away the one thing they don't have that they really desperately want, which is why they're dragging you in? The first thing you've got to ask yourself is this pitch even real? And how many of you have gone to meet a prospect, a client, you turn up, you show up and throw up, they ask you loads of questions about your people, your experience, then they give you a brief. And you go away and you do a whole load of work, and you could put between 2 and 30 people on this thing. And it might consume you all for a week or 2 weeks, and some unreasonable deadline. And then they come back to you and say, well, yeah, we're not quite there yet. And this thing drags on, and before you know it, for every £100,000 you spend £230,000 on hidden cost of sale because of the pitch process. Why not get paid for that? Get paid for what you know. It's your expertise they're bringing in. If they could do this themselves, they would have, surely.
A lot of people would say to you, well, we never get paid for pitches. That's just not the way it is. We have to kind of, show up and throw up, basically. So what?
God threw down the 3rd and 4th tablet, and it said, thou shalt do free consulting, thou shalt pitch, thou shalt be the client's one that you slap. And you just begin to wonder, what possible, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, and it feels like beating your head against the wall, it probably is. Stop it. Say, we don't do pitches. Is that going to be a problem? And if they say yes, then fall back and say, I'm sorry to hear that. Tell me, let's pretend we were to pitch. What would we have to do in order to win it? Just save yourself a whole heap of time. But instead, most people just love to go, as I am now.
And what else could they do? Say you had a big pitch on and you were dealing with procurement and they said, well, no, sorry, if you don't want to pitch, then you don't stand a chance. What other things could someone do to kind of mitigate against spending so much of their time on a pitch?
Well, I think we need to rewind a bit before then. If you found yourself in a pitch, you're in their system. So the question is, how do you stay out of their system and still move the sale forward to advance it? If we look at what we should be doing, we should be finding out whether this pitch is even real. One of the huge challenges we face, in fact, I'm going to draw up a document to help me along, because one of the big problems that you're going to have is that most RFPs, in fact all RFPs, are bogus. If you start out with that perception, then what you're going to find is that you're going to ask more searching questions. So the kind of thing that you want to ask is, how did we make the list for receiving this RFP? How many RFPs were sent? Because if you're one of 3, maybe you've got a fighting chance. But I've heard of being one of 12, in one case, one of 56. Exactly. It was just rape the market for information and do as little as humanly possible. It was a really lazy procurement exercise designed to cause 56 companies to go out and waste their time because they were preying on people's fear. Now, the big problem is that people are afraid of standing up to prospects because they put the prospect on a pedestal. The prospect is the person with a problem. You may be in a crowded competitive marketplace, but it doesn't mean you have to behave like a commodity provider. You can either solve people's problems, and they come to you because they want to sell more stuff. Okay? It's not because of the blisteringly wonderful, beautiful, creative. It's not because of your blinding insight. What they want is to sell more stuff. Your creative and your strategic thinking may help them to do that. But what they want to do is move more products or services. And when you understand that, then you can concentrate on doing your job, which is helping them to understand why they need help, what their customers are looking for, why their customers need help. And then you can find solutions to their customers' problems that make you a premium provider. I have one client, they don't win many awards. They deliberately don't go out to win awards. But what they do is they increase retailers' sales by 100, 200%. Now, if you increase your customer sales by 1 or 200%, what kind of positive responses do you reckon you might get? They may steal the credit even. But who are they going to turn to when they move to another agency or another place, another customer?
Is that an ad agency or is
it's an ad agency.
Really?
We both know them.
Okay.
Now these guys, in the space of 3 years, have more than doubled their turnover and more than increased their profits by 4-fold. In fact, it's near 5.
So what kinds of things are they doing right? Because that question was a brilliant question. How many RFPs have you sent out? Now, to a lot of agencies, it was like, I would feel like, oh, I couldn't ask that question. It seems a bit impertinent. But it seems like the most logical and wise question to ask.
What does impertinent mean?
Impertinent in the sense that I think generally agencies probably are very grateful to receive an RFP. And so they get more into the, okay, so how are we going to do this? What kind of ideas are we going to come up with? Rather than what you're describing, which is qualifying the opportunity first, very thoroughly.
Okay, I'm going to go into a bit of pop psychology here, okay? In fact, it's not pop psychology, it's stuff that really works. Our whole system is based on this stuff, and it's based on 3 circles, okay? So what I want you to do is imagine in your mind, or even draw on a piece of paper, 3 circles, one on top of each other, each one touching the one above. Okay, and in the top one, write P, middle one A, and bottom one C.
Yep.
Parent, adult, child. Okay, now the problem is that what happens is you have a parent, adult, child ego state, and so does your prospect. Now the problem is if you think that question is impertinent, what's happening is it's your child versus their parent. Now what kind of dynamic is that for an equal partnership? Yeah? What you're getting is the customer is king. The buyer is always right. The man with the gold makes the rules. And down here what we've got is mother may I, the begging, which is a breach of a rule. You never beg. It's a breach of the rule about parity. You are never less than your prospect's equal. But in that dynamic, you absolutely are. Because they have something you need and want, i.e. money, and maybe a brand that you covet so that you can try and sell to other people who are going to stiff you on fees, make you go through free pitches, and then get you to overservice, and then get you to thank them for it, then you're probably going to fall into the trap of believing that the customer is king, that the buyer is always right. And so you'll tend, because of that child-parent relationship, you'll tend to be subservient. So when they ask you to do stupid things, like for the last 5 occasions, they've asked you to do something on a Friday for a Monday, and then everything's got stalled. And you know that your people really don't want to work another weekend. Yet on Friday at 2:30, you get the unreasonable client phone you up and say, Jenny, I'm flying into London this week. Look, can you get me this done by Monday? And you think, okay, it would have been nice to have a fortnight's notice. But no, it's fine. My kid's birthday doesn't matter that much. And just because my mother is elderly and infirm, and she can probably do without now that she's broken her hip. But because you're more important, Mr. Prospect. I mean, get this into perspective. All they have is money. It's a commodity. And that messes with our head because we have a scarcity mentality. When you don't have a lot of pipeline and you don't have much choice, every means everything. And when you're under pressure and you've got, if you're in a network, I mean, those guys really take it badly. They get kicked around from pillar to post. They have some poor, and if you're one of these people, please don't take offense, donkeys, who goes out there and their job is to pick up RFPs, to give to the managing directors so that they can be run ragged and drag their teams through pointless exercises. So they think they have a 1 in 3 close rate, but they have a 1 in 20 when you come down to the number of sales cycles they've had to start. And when you think about the amount of investment, the opportunity cost, the stress, the burnout, I mean, it's a great place for psychopaths. Yeah? I mean, media is just full of raving psychopaths who love to bully people because they were bullied.
Yeah.
It's Flashman all over.
Yeah. So if we were going to break that cycle, like really good questions. I mean, if you were in that situation, say you were in a network and you had someone whose job it is to go out and find RFPs and then just throw them back to whatever business unit managing director needed to fulfill it. What other questions can they ask at that stage, given that their job is...
Okay, well, how did our company make the list for receiving this RFP and how many RFPs were sent? If we decide to participate, what happens next? So what role will the current supplier play? Who's going to be involved? On what basis? When the thing's going to happen? What happens in what order? And will the low bid be the one that wins? Now, I've got something called an RFP truth finder, and it would be completely uncharacteristic of me to give everything away. So if you want to get the rest of it, then email me, and I'll happily put it into my email list so I can fill your inbox with stuff you don't want. You can always unsubscribe. But if you want the RFP truth finder, email me at mcalky@sandler.com. And Jenny will put that up somewhere later, as long as you have deleted this bit.
I will, definitely. So where do you see the most success? The people that work with you that see the greatest success? We've talked a little bit about pitches and not kind of rolling over and playing dead, but you hit on something earlier on, which was if your pipeline isn't full and actually you're quite desperate and you're very grateful to receive it, then you're in problems because you're more likely to be very compliant and waste all your agency's time working on this pitch.
Yeah.
So what other things can they do to ensure they do have a full pipeline?
Well, what they need to do is they need to prospect. They need to get referrals. I mean, we teach a technique, for example, that whether you win or you lose, you can get up to 8 referrals. Now, if you only ever had to do 200 cold calls in your entire career, would it be worth doing that in the next 90 days in order to ensure that you fill your pipeline with qualified, referred, warm introductions? The problem is people don't see themselves as salespeople. You lot, bluntly, all see yourselves as something other than salespeople because your mother's told you salespeople are horrible, evil people who you had to keep your hand on your pocket or purse and don't let them get anywhere near it. And when they ask you for a decision, think it over is the best response. And we all learned to do that because salespeople roll over, and you roll over when it comes to it. And as a result, you end up with this enormous pipeline, which is busy activity on the way to the grave, and there's nothing in it. So you're always nervous and you can't forecast accurately, which means you can't recruit, which means you can't invest, which means you can't expand, which means you have to go after everything. So then you get treated badly, and the worse you get treated, the more you have to feel like you have to give, because the child inside says, please love me, and they don't give a damn. In fact, the really smart ones use a system called PCOS, P-I-C-O-S, Price Improvement and Cost Optimization Strategy. 121 ways to attack your identity, who you are, before they get you to the negotiating table.
And this is used by procurement?
Oh yeah, if you saw Thomas Cook a couple of years ago, they asked whoever it was who was going to be stupid enough to pitch for that business to put £1 million in escrow to keep them honest. So they got 4 companies to put £1 million of working capital away for the duration of the pitch, and one of them to leave it there for the duration of their relationship. So they may make a profit by year 3. I mean, talk about giving away. Yeah, that was just madness.
Yeah.
And I understand why Thomas Cook do it, because we let them.
They can, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was another one. One of the big, I think it might even have been one of the big Spanish telecoms providers. They were working on 270-day payment terms for small businesses. I mean, can you imagine spending 9 months with your money in some big plutocratic account and you get nothing?
Absolutely.
And then, get this, on day 269, they could say, we don't think we got good value, and not pay.
So this is all written into the small print of a contract. So again, as another tip, read the contract, read what terms you're getting. Spend
really good money on a great lawyer on your side.
Yeah.
Yeah? If you're selling to these people, watch your fingers. All buyers lie all of the time. And procurement people, that's what their job is. Their job is to stiff you on fees. Yeah. It's to drive the cost down. They think it shouldn't be. It should be to get the best solution for the business. It rarely ever happens that way because you guys sell through their system.
Because they're personally incentivized, aren't they? I mean, they have targets to reach themselves, yeah. And it's probably based on how much money they can save the company.
Their bonuses are sometimes based on how much they can save the company, but also their promotions are. What you have to remember is people don't exist in a vacuum. They exist in an environment where their careers are at stake, where they are looking over their shoulder. Because, basically muck rolls downhill. See, I performed well there. Muck rolls downhill. So the pain at the top becomes someone else's pain down the organisation. So they're having to pay, service to their masters as well. Yeah. But it's not your job to try and go to battle with these people. It's your job to try and navigate the organisation, infect it in lots of different areas, so that procurement is just one part of it. In big companies, you're not going to avoid it. In public sector, you're not going to avoid it. But what you can do is you can find sponsors who will help you put the RFP together. So, for example, one of the questions that we look at is if we decide to submit, to whom could we submit a rough draft and have it critiqued to make sure we've covered all the important issues? Having a sponsor who's going to look on, and who wants you to win, and who's going to make sure that you're producing a solution that the customer is likely to want, the prospect is likely to want, and that will cause them to become your customer, your client, then that makes a good deal of sense.
Yeah.
And then you're doing it from a position of strength. The problem is that most people go into these things blind.
Yeah.
And why would you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And often when you get an RFP and you're preparing it, you want to speak to the client, but actually then you can't get hold of the client, or they can't spend the time with you. And they say, I can give you 20 minutes. Because they're just as much in the system. They are... they've got to get 3 suppliers to pitch to them.
They're about to spend the price of a big mortgage or even a decent-sized villa in Uruguay. So why on God's earth would they not want to invest the time? If they don't, doesn't it tell you something about their level of commitment to the problem? And what sort of client are they going to be when you're working with them? If they won't even let you meet the people you're going to work with. You're going to be in bed with these people for 12, 14, 16, 18, 21 hours in a day. You're going to be at their beck and call. They're going to cause you to miss your children's football matches. They're going to be causing you to miss funerals. They're going to be causing you to miss treatment for parents, for your children. You won't be able to see your kids' assembly. Yeah? And this is because you abdicate your control and your power because you think of yourself as a third-party supplier of a commodity instead of someone who has expertise that can really help this business and the individuals within it.
Mm-hmm. You said earlier on that the way to referrals, but that ad agencies generally don't see themselves as salespeople, so they don't have a referral habit.
Yeah.
When you talk about referrals, how do you go about getting referrals? I mean, because again, it's that kind of stepping out of their comfort zone. I can't go aggressively say, well, thank you very much for, giving us this. Well, we didn't get it, but who else can refer us to?
Oh, you're waiting that long?
Well, I was just only because we were talking about pitches.
You could wait till then if you want to, but why not just open up and say something along the lines of, Jenny, let me tell you what my biggest problem is. For me to be effective at my job, at some point I'm going to have to ask you about referrals. Now, I know I'm not going to be able to do this, so I wonder if you could do me a favour and help me out. At the end, could you remind me to ask you for referrals?
Lovely, yeah.
Yeah,
very good.
Just open up. See, I hate doing this. This part makes my stomach turn. I'm a terrible salesperson, and I know that this is the bit that both of us are going to feel uncomfortable about. So can we get it out of the way now? Yeah, deal with it up front. Be human about it, and tell them it's your big problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
Excellent.
I mean. Do you want to spend your life waiting for crumbs to be thrown at you? Or even worse, actually having to pick up the phone and speak to another human being about selling your stuff and getting past gatekeepers? Oh, who are you? What's this call about? What's your name? Which company are you from? Does he know you? Is he expecting your call? And you're sitting there thinking, I'm too old for this. I'm too nice for this. I hate receiving those shitty calls. Well, why would you do that to yourself if you could just get referred? Last week, 27 referrals. I know. I'm just inundated. Give me more, yeah? Because not all of them are great. But as I trundle through them, I can even get referrals from the referrals.
Fantastic.
It's so much easier than real work.
Yeah. So what have you seen any trends in agencies that work with you? Have you seen things are getting worse, things are getting better, or do you...
Not for my clients, no, they're going right. So, where are we? Let me do my bragging here.
Go on.
I'm just so proud of this. One of my clients invited me in a month ago because I posted a case study of them on my LinkedIn profile. And they invited me in so I could get the real story. Anyway, long story short, what they did was they brought out their last 10 years report and accounts. Now, I'm not going to say who they are because that would be inappropriate. However, come on. What they did was they were very kind and they gave me this graph. Now, bear in mind, these guys, can you see that?
Yep.
Okay,
It goes down
I started working with them.
What are there's two lines on there.
Okay, right. The top line is top line revenue, which has doubled. Okay, in fact it doubled in 1 year. The 9 years losses that they made, or the 9 year setback, basically, because I got them to the same level they were 9 years before in 1 year. Okay, but what was really interesting was that bottom line. Because the bottom line shows an increase of from £121,000 profit to £450,000 profit in the first year. Actually, because they acquired a couple of companies, there was some financial management, which was entirely legal. They managed to get another 100,000, which they've now reinvested. So 550,000 from 121,000 1 year. I have a branding agency. He was doing £8,000 a year. He came to me.
£8,000.
Yeah, 8,000. He did 86 the first year he worked with me. The next year he did 860,000, and he's just finishing his 3-year earnout, having sold to an agency.
So the obvious question, how? I mean, what are the 3 things that you changed about his business?
Well, we stopped them from pitching.
Right.
We taught them to sell on pain instead of trying to show up and throw up and explain anything about the company. And that my clients don't talk about themselves at all. They don't talk about their people, they don't talk about their systems, their methodology, their products, their services. It makes no difference because no one gives a damn. The only person who does is the salesperson. Sorry, the account manager, who doesn't like to call himself a salesperson. The third thing is be disarmingly honest. Tell people what you can and can't do. Tell them what's acceptable and not acceptable. Tell them when you're uncomfortable or you don't want to proceed. Be ready to say no and walk away from stuff. Yesterday was a cracking day. I coached this son of a client of another franchisee to help him get into journalism. And then my client, my design client, invited me to the Ivy to say thank you. Nice. For the work that we've done together. Lovely. And the three things that mattered to him most were stopping pitching in an environment where he was absolutely adamant you had to pitch. Okay. The second thing was that they were ready to walk away from business if it didn't fit their profile. And the third was that they didn't do free consulting anymore. What they did was they closed up front and they took people through a process which resulted in them knowing precisely where they were. And they create parity through the use of something called an upfront contract, so that they never begin or end any conversation without knowing where it's headed and where it's going to end up and what happens next. Huge difference. And I've got to say, he talks about his business joyously. I've got a public affairs client, so lobbying, and his business partner basically ran the business into the ground for 6 years, and then ran off with the few remaining clients and the staff. And my client was 62, 63 when this happened. Lovely thing to happen at the end of your career. Anyway, it took him a year to turn the business around with what he had left. From starting from 4 clients, they're now making more, in that first year they made more profit than they had in the previous 6. And my client had taken over. They're now doing just shy of a couple of million, and it looks like they're going to grow again. Now, this is 3 years. In fact, it's not even 3 years, it's about 2.5.
And this is all through applying the principles, the Sandler principles that you teach. And you talked a little bit earlier about an upfront contract. So tell us a bit more about an upfront contract.
Well, an upfront contract comes out of being angry, to be perfectly honest. And that's where it was born. David Sandler, who invented the system, me when I teach it. I've got a lot of scar tissue. And the scar tissue relates to all the things that I wish I had done in a sale, but I never got round to doing. So I've learned to build that into the upfront contract. So I want to know how long we've got, so that you don't suddenly cut me off after 20 minutes and say, oh, I've got another meeting. I want to know that at the end a decision is going to be made. Not that you're definitely going to buy. That doesn't have to be the decision, although that would be my preferred option. But it could be that we agree to a next meeting and we define what the agenda for that next meeting is, and we put a date in the diary and we commit to doing the interim steps necessary to get there. Instead of, give me a call in 2 weeks and I spend 3 months chasing you, only to realise you've already bought from a competitor, but you haven't had the courtesy to tell me. I mean, that never happens, does it?
This happens all the time, doesn't it? I think, and it's a bit of a. People think that it's a soft way of telling you that, it's not going anywhere. They think it's a nice way to let you down. Oh, I'll give you a call. And in the meantime, someone goes away with that message thinking they're going to call me and it's all okay.
It's in forecast.
It's in the forecast.
I mean, when you were running your team, how much of a joy was forecasting?
It was very, very difficult. Very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't get an answer just off that, on top of all the codswallop that's being dumped down from above, saying pitch for this, you've got to be in it to win it. It's not like this is a lottery. In fact, the Belgians did the smartest thing. The Belgian advertising industry clubbed together and all the agencies had a letter on their page. This was about 2-3 years ago. And it said, essentially, it's going to cost you €6,000 if you want us to pitch, because we're sick and tired of free pitching. The money we spend on pitching would be better spent on the Belgian lottery, because we have a higher chance of winning the business. Excellent. That's what they actually did. Fantastic. Now, I've got to tell you, that took guts. But, just because not everyone else is doing it, it's probably a good reason to actually stand up and be counted. Yeah. My clients routinely tell people, I'm afraid we don't do pitches. Is that going to prevent us from doing business? And they fall back and fall back and fall back. And meanwhile, they're qualifying. They're actually finding out what the decision-making process looks like. They can make a judgment call at the end, whether it's even worth it. I mean, can we win this? That's a question you have to ask yourself. But how often do people go in thinking, I'm going to be gung-ho, let me put my Rambo headscarf on and paint up, and off we go. We'll just go into battle. And if you want to see the absolute idiocy of this, if you ever get the opportunity to watch the series, The Pitch, it is the most depressing thing you can watch. Because you just see yourself going through this painful process where you're needy, desperate and skint. And you're trying to please a critical parent who tries to give nothing away. And they give you, they essentially, they're tight-lipped because they're trying to get you to compete, because they want to throw you the glimmer of a scrap so that you and the other dogs fight around the table. And they get the best out of you by paying you nothing. I mean, did you go through all of that grief? Did you go through your apprenticeships? Did you go through dealing with that creative director from hell, the strategy director who knew everything, the managing director who used to come and every 2 or 3 weeks just lob in a grenade? Did you do that just so you could be badly treated by your clients as well? I mean, please, develop a spine. Stand up and say, enough is enough. There's a reasonable boundary. We're experts in our field. Now, if you want to do business with us, we need to find a way that suits us both. Because we're looking to partner. We're not looking to be just a commodity provider that you just throw bombs at and say, we've got a launch in 4 days, design me a brand identity and all the packaging by Monday. Yeah, why would you do that?
Exactly why.
Yeah, I mean, you're talented, you're bright, you're articulate, you can communicate, most of you. You're creative, whatever that means. I'm lacking much creativity myself. But you're creative, you're articulate, you're able to produce incredible concepts. Your imagination is magnificent, and then you give it away. Dull.
It's because of the way that we've always done it that way, so why should it be any different now?
Absolutely.
So when you're working with people, how long is it before they start making these changes? Like, how quickly do you see results when you start working with someone?
I've had some people where you don't get results because they just never buy in. I've got one client at the moment, and it's an in-house thing, and it's just demoralising one of the guys because he's not allowed to discount anymore. He's not allowed to spill his guts anymore. And he's not allowed to sell unprofitable business anymore. So he's not, it's probably my fault. It's more of a teaching disability than anything else because I haven't been able to bring him on board. But I've had other people. So I had a web development company come to me, and they came to my half-day session and went away. He went from an average order value of £1,200 to an average order value of £8.5 after that. That was just straight away. He made £13,500 sales that afternoon.
Just by upping his prices, presumably. Just by upping his prices or getting several clients?
And also by finding pain, because when they have pain, they'll pay whatever it takes to make the pain go away.
Got it.
It's not like you create pain. The problem people have with the whole concept of selling on pain is that they think that you go and you create it. It exists, okay? If you're an account manager, your pain before you've ever seen me or spoken to me is this. You wake up in the morning looking forward to a long day with meeting after meeting, interruption after interruption. You are being asked to do unreasonable things. You're having to marshal resources internally who are largely already overstretched and really quite pissed off. You've probably got some tyrant somewhere at the top, either in strategy, creative, or at the managing director level, who pulls shit downhill. Sorry about that. Everybody is fighting internally. You struggle to find resource. You're understaffed. You're run ragged. And at some point, you want to see your wife and kids, or your husband and kids. You spend your time constantly going from one fire to the next. Now, if that doesn't describe you, you're probably not a prospect for me. Okay? But if it does, I fix that kind of stuff. Now, how many of you would pay good money to make those problems go away forever? pain. Yeah, that's getting into their story.
Absolutely.
And that's your job as an account manager. It's to find out each job title. So the marketing director, the product directors, the branding director, the CFO, the chief executive, what are they all trying to achieve? How can you help them achieve their big strategic objectives? Go into their annual report and accounts if you're selling to publicly listed companies, and look at the chairman and chief executives, blue sky, this is our vision for next year. And then look at the next section, which is the caveats, that says, these are all the reasons why we're not going to achieve the stuff in section 1A. Okay? Now, if you can help them solve even one of those problems, you're a hero. Now, people do not buy advertising. They don't buy public relations. They don't buy lobbying any more than people buy training, recruitment, or IT. People buy the whole, not the drill. Okay? So what is the problem they are trying to overcome? I can't go into the wall and just jab my finger at it and hope that that's going to make a dent big enough so I can hang my picture.
Yeah. Okay?
I need to find a way around stuff I can't do. And the question you'd always ask is, why aren't they doing this in-house? Why aren't they doing it themselves? Why aren't they going with their incumbent? Yeah? Now, if you don't understand this kind of stuff, odds are you're going to go in unprepared. And you're going to be eaten alive. Yeah? There was one example of a PR company pitching for a piece of work. It took me 4 questions to identify it wasn't real. 4. And he phoned up the head of the line of business and said, I'm afraid we're not going to be pitching on this. And the guy said, why not? I said, well, it doesn't seem to be real. This is a product that's growing by 40% in 15 countries and has been doing so for 5 years. Why on God's earth would you ever want someone from outside to touch it? And he said, you're probably right. So anyway, long story short, he ended up going over, but he picked up £3 million worth of real business because he dug for the real problem. And the other 2 companies put teams of 7 and 9 senior people together for over a 2-week period to go and pitch. Now that's £79,000 to £84,000 because we know how much they charge. Now that's a lot of money
also,
for a bogus RFP.
You're positioning yourself very differently versus your competitors if you're asking those kinds of questions, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because it's too many agencies or whatever discipline are too scared to ask those probing questions, and then they end up being just one of all the other, a supplier, as you said before. Just
if you're a bland me too. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. If you're a bland me too, then they're going to forget you. The problem is that most people do this quick exercise. Okay, what I want you to do is I want you to write down the top 3 benefits of your agency. Okay, now the bad news is you've been fired. The good news is you've just been hired by your biggest competitor. Now write down their top 3 benefits. Okay, for many of you it's identical. Fair? Okay, so you can't sell on features and benefits, but you can differentiate in how you sell. If you get to the root cause, if you're like a really good country doctor, okay, a good country, imagine you're going in to meet your prospect, and you're the doctor, and he's done in his leg, okay? Are you going to be asking him about his kidneys? Are you going to be telling him about your great optical, your ophthalmic tools? Why would you talk about that stuff when what he's got is a gammy leg?
Yeah.
Focus on the diagnosis. When did you first notice? Well, when I fell down the steps. Interesting. Tell me more about that. Slap, 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 slap. Okay? That's how you diagnose. What you don't do is you don't say, I hear you've got a dodgy leg. Let me tell you about our kidney dialysis machine.
Fantastic analogy.
Yeah.
Very good.
Anyway, so I rant about this stuff.
No, but I love it. It's diagnosing the real problems and getting under the skin of the prospect first before then you offer solutions. Because we're very
it's always personal. Sorry to interrupt. You remember the dynamic earlier of parent and child?
Yeah.
Okay. What we should be doing is selling to their child. Yeah? Because their child is where the emotion is. Now, if you understand and diagnose pain, then make it personal. So how's that affecting you directly, Jen? Because when it becomes personal, now it's my fight.
Yeah.
I now have an internal salesperson who's ready to go out and help me navigate the organization. Their bonus may depend on it. Their career may depend on it. Their mortgage definitely depends on it.
Yeah.
Yeah?
You're absolutely right, because if you can open up your prospect and get them to talk to you on that level, already you've differentiated yourself among your peers and your colleagues and your competitors. Because
if they trust you.
If they trust you. But I find that asking the questions in the right way, they do start to trust you, because once they've opened up, they think, well, I've never told anyone those problems before. Because you usually find if you're dealing with a marketing director or business unit director, their challenges, I mean, they're either trying to keep their job, or they're trying to get promoted, they're trying to look good.
They're trying to do a good job as well.
Exactly.
In this whirlwind, this noise of constant interruption, these people wanting a piece of them, their staff delegating up, clients pushing down, management pushing down on them, their peers vying for the same budget, politics, and all the interruptions and noise, and then they have to pitch. And holidays must be. Have you seen the Hurt Locker?
No.
The Hurt Locker's about a bomb disposal guy in Iraq, and it's really high intensity. And then he goes home, and he's bored. I imagine that's what it's like for most people in media.
It is.
They go home and they're bored. They're thinking, what am I going to do now? I don't have enough pressure or adrenaline just to keep me awake. Let me just knock a few cappuccinos back and let's hit the bottle.
Have a bottle of wine, yeah. You really do understand
that was
your
a yes
audience.
Then.
You really do understand your audience, Marcus, don't you?
I do. I mean, the number of people who come to me and they break in floods of tears because of the pressure they're under. And most of it is avoidable.
Yeah.
Learning to say no. I've got to tell you, one of the best lessons you can learn is to learn to say no. Set boundaries. Yeah. Tell people, no, doesn't work for me. Thank you very much for thinking about me. Really appreciate it. Now, pick on someone else.
Yeah.
Just say no a lot. The more no's that you get as well, the quicker you're likely to get to people who say yes. Yeah. Because if you get no's early, you don't have to waste a whole heap of time putting together creative briefs. You don't have to write proposals. And worst of all, you don't have to sit through those 3 days of excruciating financials where they go through line by line in a reverse auction. How low will you go? Oh, why do you do that to yourselves? Just go in and sell on value.
This is really compelling for a lot of people, I'm sure, that are watching this, Marcus. So if someone wants to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Mobile 07515 937 221. Email mcauchi at Sandler, SANDLER.com. I'm under The Inquisitor on Twitter, capital T, capital I with an underscore, so _Inquisitor. I'm on LinkedIn. I post a video every Tuesday on sunzoo.com, 2 o'clock. I'm normally meant to be there afterwards, but if I'm not, then just text me and I'll answer your questions. And I warn you up front, I'm very direct. It's an unpleasant experience to work with me. Most people who do never become my friend, and I already have one. I don't need another. So you're bringing me in because you want help, and I'll help. But it's tough. You're going to look in the mirror, and it's not always that pretty. And you've got to just suck it in bluntly. And I'll be nice every now and again.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Marcus.
It's a
Honestly,
pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure, as always. I've learned so much, as always, and everyone else has too, I'm sure. So thank you so much.
Put them on.